Hi everyone, and welcome to Super English Talks. My name is Jara, and I'm so happy that you're here with me today. If you sometimes feel shy or nervous when speaking English, if you want to join conversations but don't know what to say, or if you just want to sound more confident and natural when you speak, then you're in the right place. Here on this channel, we learn English step by step, in a way that is simple, clear, and useful for real life. My goal is to help you learn English in a fun and easy way, so you can enjoy the process and feel proud of your progress every day. In today's lesson, we're going to practice together. Not just listen, but speak, repeat, and improve as we go. I'll guide you through each part. And by the end of this lesson, you'll be speaking more fluently and confidently than before. So stay with me until the end, because the last part is very special. It will help you put everything together and use what you learn in your real conversations. Now take a deep breath, relax, and let's begin our journey to fluent English together. Grab a pen and paper if you can, and let's get started. When we think about moving from a B1 level to a C2 level in English, the first thing that comes to mind is vocabulary. Vocabulary is the foundation of fluency. If we don't have enough words, we can't express our ideas clearly. We can't describe our feelings well. And we can't join advanced conversations easily. At the B1 level, you already know the basics. You can introduce yourself, talk about your day, and share simple opinions. But at the C2 level, you can do much more. You can use richer, more precise, and more natural expressions that show confidence and clarity. For example, at the B1 level, you might say, "I am tired today because I worked a lot." That's correct, but simple. At the C2 level, you could say, "I'm exhausted after such a busy day at work." Or, "I feel drained after handling so many difficult tasks today." See the difference? The meaning is the same, but the advanced versions sound stronger and more expressive. They show emotion, variety, and a wider vocabulary. This is the first thing we'll practice together: how to take simple sentences and make them sound more advanced. Let's try together. I'll give you a basic sentence. Then you try to make it more advanced. Here's the first one. The food was good. How can we make it sound better? You could say, "The food was delicious." Or, "The meal was absolutely delightful." Or even, "The flavors were exquisite and every bite was satisfying." Each version is a little richer and more expressive. Pause for a moment. Repeat after me. Then try to make your own advanced version. Let's do another one. Basic sentence. "I don't like this movie." At the C2 level, you might say, "This movie doesn't appeal to me." Or, "I found this film rather uninteresting." Or, "The storyline failed to capture my attention." Can you hear the difference? These versions sound more natural and more fluent. This kind of practice, changing simple sentences into advanced ones, will slowly move you from B1 to C2 level step by step. Another important skill is using connectors. At the B1 level, learners usually use simple connectors like and, but, or, because. But at the C2 level, we use more advanced ones such as although, nevertheless, moreover, consequently, or on the other hand. Connectors make your speech smoother and more logical. They help your ideas flow naturally. For example, basic. I wanted to go out, but it was raining. Advanced. Although I wanted to go out, the heavy rain kept me indoors. Or, I wanted to go out. Nevertheless, the weather forced me to stay inside. See how it sounds smoother and more professional? Connectors are like bridges that connect your ideas and make your speech flow easily. Let's practice one more. Basic sentence. I stayed home because I was tired. Now, let's upgrade it. I decided to stay home since I was feeling exhausted. Or, as I was completely worn out, I chose to stay home and rest. Beautiful, right? With just a few new words, your English becomes more fluent and expressive. Keep practicing these steps. Learn new vocabulary, build advanced sentences, and use connectors to make your ideas clear. Little by little, you'll move from B1 to C2, from basic to fluent, and from learning English to living English. Take a deep breath, smile, and remember, every small step counts. Now, let's continue together on this journey to confident, natural English. Now, let's look at another example. You could say, I stayed home as I was completely worn out after work. That sounds natural and fluent. But if we want to make it sound even more advanced, we can say, I remained at home, for fatigue had completely overwhelmed me by the end of the day. Do you hear the difference? Both sentences have the same meaning, but the second one feels richer, deeper, and more elegant. That's exactly the kind of practice that helps you move toward the C2 level. When learning at the B1 level, many students are afraid to use new words. They worry about making mistakes or sounding strange. But at the C2 level, confidence is everything. You must be brave enough to use new vocabulary, to try advanced expressions, and to experiment with different sentence structures. Remember, mistakes are not failures. They are signs that you are learning. Every mistake is like a small step forward. Think about it this way. When you use a new or difficult word incorrectly, you might feel a bit embarrassed. But the next time, you will remember it better. And soon, it will become part of your natural speech. So, in this masterclass, I want you to practice out loud. Without fear, without hesitation. Embrace every mistake as progress. That's how real fluency is built, through courage, repetition, and patience. Now, let's do a short daily life practice. Imagine you had a long day at school or work. At the B1 level, you might say, my day was busy. That's fine, but let's make it stronger. At a C2 level, you could say, my day was incredibly demanding, filled with non-stop activities. Or, today was overwhelming, with back-to-back responsibilities that left me little time to rest. Or even, it was a hectic day packed with challenging tasks that required constant focus. Repeat these sentences after me slowly. Try to imagine yourself saying them in a real conversation, as if you're talking to a friend about your day. The more you connect your words to your real experiences, the faster you will grow. When your English feels real, it becomes easier to remember and use naturally. Now let's talk about rhythm and tone. Two very important parts of fluent speech. Fluency is not only about vocabulary. It's also about how you speak. The rhythm, the flow, and the energy in your voice. At the B1 level, many learners speak word by word. They pause often, and that breaks the natural flow of English. But at the C2 level, you learn to speak in chunks, groups of words that flow together smoothly. For example, instead of saying each word slowly like this, I went to the store. Try to link the words, I went to the store. And for more advanced practice, I went to the store to pick up some essentials before dinner. Notice how natural and smooth it sounds when you say it in rhythm. This kind of fluency comes from shadowing, repeating what you hear from native speakers, copying their tone, speed, and expression. We'll keep practicing this technique throughout the lesson, so you can feel the rhythm of real English speech. Another clear sign that you're moving from B1 to C2 is your ability to describe things with detail and precision. At B1, you often describe things in a simple way. For example, the weather is nice. That's good, but very basic. At C2, you can add color, emotion, and imagery to your words. For example, the weather today is pleasantly warm, with a gentle breeze that makes it comfortable to walk outside. Or, the day feels refreshing, the air is crisp, and the sunlight is perfectly balanced, not too strong, not too weak. Do you hear how these sentences paint a picture in your mind? That's what advanced English does. It doesn't just give information. It helps the listener feel and see what you mean. At higher levels, English is not only about grammar or vocabulary. It's about expression, about creating emotions and images with your words. Now let's practice together. Think of something simple like your day, the weather, or your mood, and try to describe it in a more detailed and colorful way. Ready? Let's begin. Now let's look at another example. The basic sentences. My room is small. That's a good start, but we can make it sound richer and more advanced. At an advanced level, you might say, my room is compact but cozy with enough space for everything I need. Or, though the room is modest in size, it feels warm and inviting because of its simple design. Or even, it may be small, but it has a charming atmosphere that makes me feel comfortable every time I step in. Pause here for a moment. Repeat these sentences slowly after me. Now, try to describe a small space in your life, maybe your bedroom, a study corner, or a small cafe you like. Practice using rich, expressive language to make it sound more interesting and personal. Another very important area for C2 fluency is the use of idiomatic expressions. At the B1 level, most learners use simple, direct words. For example, I am very tired. It's easy. I don't understand. But at the C2 level, native-like English includes idioms, collocations, and phrasal verbs. These make your speech sound natural and expressive. So instead of saying, I am very tired, you could say, I am worn out, or I'm completely drained. Instead of saying, it's easy, you could say, it's a piece of cake. And instead of saying, I don't understand, you could say, I can't make sense of it. These expressions are what native speakers use every day. They make your speech sound more fluent and relaxed. Let's practice a few idioms together. Repeat after me slowly. After working for 8 hours, I was completely wiped out. Good. One more. Understanding advanced grammar at first can feel like climbing a mountain, but with practice, it becomes easier. And another. I was over the moon when I passed my exam with high marks. Each of these sentences uses idiomatic or colorful language to replace a simple idea. Try making your own list of idioms that you like. Then practice using them in your daily life, when you talk to friends, write messages, or think in English. That's how idioms become natural for you. Now let's talk about another skill that helps you reach C2 fluency: nuance. At B1, many learners use 1 or 2 basic words to describe everything. But at higher levels, you start to use synonyms, words that mean similar things but express different shades of feeling. For example, take the word happy. At B1, you might just say, I am happy. That's okay, but it's simple. At C2, you can use words like joyful, delighted, thrilled, ecstatic, content, pleased. Each of these means happy, but in a different way. Thrilled means very excited. Content means peaceful or quietly satisfied. Delighted means very pleased or joyful. When you understand these small differences, your English becomes richer and more precise. Let's practice. Repeat after me. I was delighted to meet her after such a long time. He felt content after finishing his project successfully. She was ecstatic when she heard the good news. Now imagine different situations in your life: meeting someone, finishing something, receiving good news. And try to use a different synonym for happy each time. This will help you choose the perfect word for each situation and sound more natural and expressive. Next, let's look at another very useful skill: paraphrasing. Paraphrasing means saying the same idea in a different way. It's a superpower for fluency. In real conversations, we often forget a word or don't know the exact term we want to say. At the B1 level, this can make you stop and hesitate. But at the C2 level, you learn to explain the same thing in another way smoothly and naturally, so your speech never stops. For example, if you forget the word restaurant, you can say, the place where people go to eat food. If you forget the word generous, you could say, someone who gives a lot and is very kind. This keeps your speech flowing, even when your vocabulary isn't perfect. Let's do a short exercise together. Imagine you forget the word expensive. How could you explain it? It costs a lot of money. The price is very high. Now imagine you forget the word library, the place where people borrow books. And one more, imagine you forget the word shy, someone who feels nervous when speaking to others. This kind of practice trains your brain to keep talking without stopping. And that is one of the strongest signs of true fluency. Finally, let's talk about register, your ability to adjust your language depending on the situation. For example, the way you speak to your best friend is not the same as the way you speak in a job interview or to your teacher. At the C2 level, you know how to switch between formal and informal English easily. We'll explore this more in the next section of our lesson. But for now, take a deep breath and think about what you've learned so far. How to build advanced sentences. Use idioms and synonyms. Paraphrase when needed. And speak with rhythm and flow. Every time you practice, you're not just learning English. You're training yourself to think in English. And that's the true key to fluency. At the B1 level, you might use the same kind of words in both formal and informal situations. But when you reach C2, you start to understand that tone matters. How you speak should change depending on where you are and who you're talking to. For example, with friends, you might say, "Hey, what's up?" That's informal, friendly, and casual. But in a job interview, you would say, "Good morning. It's a pleasure to meet you." That's formal, polite, and professional. Both are greetings, but they fit different contexts. And this is one of the most important things to learn at the advanced level. To move smoothly between formal, neutral, and informal English. Let's practice this idea. Imagine you want to invite a friend to dinner. You might say, "Want to grab dinner tonight?" That's informal, simple, and friendly. Now imagine you're writing to a colleague or business partner. You might say, "Would you like to join me for dinner this evening?" That's formal and polite. Both mean the same thing, but the register or level of formality changes. Try this exercise later. Take one simple sentence and say it in 3 styles: informal, neutral, and formal. For example, informal, "Can you help me out?" Neutral, "Could you help me, please?" Formal, "I would appreciate your assistance with this." This kind of flexibility is what truly makes your English sound advanced and natural. Now, let's talk about grammar flexibility, another skill that separates B1 speakers from C2 speakers. At B1, learners usually rely on basic tenses: the present simple, past simple, and future simple. And that's a great foundation. But at C2, you need to use a wider range of tenses and structures comfortably. Not just to sound advanced, but to express time and detail more precisely. For example, basic, "I lived here for 5 years." That's correct, but a bit simple. Advanced, "I have been living here for the past 5 years, and during this time, I've learned so much about the culture." Can you hear how it adds more life and detail to the idea? It tells a story, not just a fact. Let's practice together. Basic version. "I studied English last year." Now, let's make it more advanced. "I was studying English throughout last year, focusing on my pronunciation and fluency." I had been studying English for several months before I decided to take an advanced course. I have studied English continuously since last year, and it has completely transformed the way I communicate. Each version uses a different tense: past continuous, past perfect continuous, present perfect. And each shows a higher level of control and detail. This is exactly how advanced speakers express ideas naturally and precisely. Now let's look at another important part of C2 grammar: conditionals. At the B1 level, you probably use simple conditionals like, "If it rains, I will stay home." That's great. It's clear and correct. But at the C2 level, you can use advanced conditionals, such as the third conditional or mixed conditionals, to talk about unreal, imaginary, or past situations. For example, if I had studied harder last year, I would have passed the exam with flying colors. If I were more confident, I would speak in front of large audiences without hesitation. These forms allow you to express regret, wishes, and hypothetical situations, things that didn't happen, but could have. Let's practice a few together. Repeat after me. If I had woken up earlier, I wouldn't have missed the bus. If I were living in London right now, I would be practicing my English every single day with native speakers. If I had taken that opportunity, my life would look completely different today. Excellent. These sentences might feel a bit difficult at first, but once you master them, you'll have incredible flexibility in expressing ideas, and you'll sound truly fluent and confident. Apart from grammar, you also need advanced vocabulary, especially for emotions and abstract ideas. At the B1 level, you might say something simple like, "I am sad." That's correct, but it doesn't express much emotion or depth. At the C2 level, you can say, "I feel disheartened by the outcome. Her words left me feeling deeply discouraged." Similarly, instead of saying, "I am angry," you could say, "I am outraged by this unfair situation. His rude behavior left me utterly frustrated." See how these advanced expressions communicate not just what you feel, but how deeply you feel it. That's the difference between simple and powerful English. Try to expand your emotional vocabulary step by step. Learn new words like disappointed, irritated, relieved, anxious, inspired, devastated, grateful. Each one describes a different emotion, and using them precisely will make your English sound natural, expressive, and real. So, to recap this part, adjust your tone depending on the situation, formal or informal. Use a wider range of tenses to express time and meaning. Master conditionals to describe possibilities and regrets. And build strong emotional vocabulary to express yourself clearly. These skills together will take your English from good to truly fluent and natural. Notice how the advanced words carry stronger emotion and more precise meaning. This is exactly the type of vocabulary that will make your English stand out and sound more natural at the C2 level. Let's do a little practice exercise together. I'll give you a simple word, and you'll try to replace it with a more advanced synonym. Ready? The first word is big. Instead of big, you could say huge, enormous, massive, gigantic, tremendous, immense. Now try the word small. Instead of small, try tiny, miniature, compact, minute, modest, delicate. And now let's do good. Instead of good, use excellent, outstanding, remarkable, impressive, exceptional. Excellent work. Repeating these words and practicing them in sentences will help you upgrade your vocabulary naturally. So you'll start replacing simple words with advanced alternatives without even thinking about it. Let's build some sentences together. Repeat after me. The building was enormous, towering over everything around it. Her performance was exceptional. Every detail was carefully polished. He gave a minute description of the event, covering even the smallest details. Good. By practicing in this way, you start to internalize synonyms. That means your brain learns to choose the more advanced word automatically when you speak. And that's one of the key habits that will lift you from B1 to C2. Now, let's move to another important area, advanced discourse markers. These are the phrases that help you connect ideas smoothly and make your speech sound logical and professional. At the B1 level, learners often use simple connectors like first, then, finally. That's a great start. But at the C2 level, you should be able to use expressions like on the contrary, as a matter of fact, in other words, to put it simply. Having said that, In contrast, by and large, all things considered. These expressions help you organize your thoughts clearly and make your English sound natural and polished. Let's practice with a few examples. Basic. I like coffee. I don't like tea. Advanced. I enjoy coffee. On the contrary, tea has never appealed to me. Another one. She is usually quiet. Advanced. She is usually quiet. As a matter of fact, she prefers to listen more than she talks. And one more. The movie was long and slow. Advanced. The movie was long and slow. Having said that, the acting was truly outstanding. Repeat these with me slowly and clearly. Notice how each phrase gives your sentence a smooth connection and a professional rhythm. This is exactly how advanced speakers sound: confident, natural, and well-organized. Now let's step into some real-life practice. Imagine you are giving your opinion in a meeting. At the B1 level, you might simply say, "I think this idea is good." But at the C2 level, you could say, "In my opinion, this proposal holds great potential for success, provided we implement it effectively." Or, "From my perspective, this suggestion could be highly beneficial if we consider the practical challenges involved." These advanced forms show not only your opinion, but also your critical thinking and your confidence. And that's exactly what fluent English sounds like. Let's practice a few more examples together. Repeat after me. From my point of view, this approach is more efficient than the one we used before. As far as I am concerned, developing strong communication skills is essential for career growth. In my view, consistent practice is the only path to mastering advanced English. Try saying these sentences with confidence, as if you're speaking in a real meeting, sharing your ideas and being heard. Remember, C2 English isn't just about grammar or vocabulary. It's about sounding natural, confident, and in control, no matter where you are or who you're speaking to. This is how you bring advanced fluency into your daily life. To reach the C2 level in English, you must also learn how to tell stories naturally and beautifully. At the B1 level, many learners tell stories in short, simple sentences. They often repeat the same structure again and again. For example, someone might say, "Yesterday I went to the park. I met my friend. We talked. Then we went home." This is correct, but it sounds a little flat and uninteresting. It gives information, but it does not create an image or feeling. At the C2 level, your goal is to make your stories come alive. You can do this by using richer vocabulary, time expressions, and descriptive details that make your story flow smoothly. For example, you could say, "Yesterday afternoon, I happened to meet an old friend at the park. We ended up having a long, engaging conversation about our lives. And by the time we finished, the sun was already setting, painting the sky with beautiful colors." This version sounds more natural and interesting. It helps the listener imagine the moment. It feels like a real experience, not just a list of actions. Let's practice this together. Start with the simple version. "I cooked dinner last night." Now let's make it sound more advanced. "Last night, I prepared a homemade dinner with fresh ingredients, and the aroma filled the entire kitchen as I cooked." Here is another upgrade. "Yesterday evening, I decided to cook a warm, comforting dinner. The process of chopping vegetables and stirring the pot felt surprisingly relaxing after a long day." Do you hear how each version adds more life, more color, and more rhythm? This is what storytelling at the advanced level sounds like. It paints a picture in the listener's mind. Another important part of C2 fluency is the ability to express subtle opinions and emotions. At the B1 level, you might say something simple like, "I like this book." That is fine, but it does not show much emotion or detail. At the C2 level, you can express your thoughts in a deeper and more personal way. For example, "I truly enjoyed this book because the author managed to capture emotions in such a realistic way." Or, I found this novel deeply moving. The characters felt so alive that I almost forgot they were not real. See how these sentences show not just what you feel, but also why you feel it? That is the power of advanced English. It allows you to communicate feelings with clarity, depth, and elegance. Here is a short exercise. Repeat these sentences after me. I appreciated the movie not only because of its story, but also because of the way it made me reflect on my own life. I enjoyed the music mainly because of its emotional depth and the way it connected with my memories. I admired the speech since it combined clarity with a powerful message that stayed with me afterward. These sentences go beyond simple opinions. They give reasons, explanations, and emotions, all signs of C2 fluency. Now let's look at another very important skill for advanced speakers, hedging your opinions politely. At the B1 level, learners often sound too direct. They might say things like, "You are wrong," or "That is not true." While these sentences are grammatically correct, they can sound rude or unfriendly in English conversations. At the C2 level, you learn how to soften your language to sound polite and respectful, even when you disagree with someone. For example, instead of saying "You are wrong," you could say, "I see your point, but I am not entirely convinced." Or, "That is an interesting perspective. However, I would look at it differently." Or, "I understand where you are coming from, though I am not sure I completely agree." These sentences sound polite, thoughtful, and professional. They help you express disagreement without sounding rude. This is especially important in academic discussions, professional meetings, or social situations where tone matters a lot. Let's practice some polite disagreement together. Repeat these sentences slowly. I respect your opinion, but I would like to offer a different point of view. You raise a valid concern. However, I believe there might be another solution. That is certainly a good idea, though we might need to think about a few other possibilities as well. When you speak like this, people see you as calm, respectful, and intelligent. You show that you can express yourself clearly while also considering other people's ideas. This is what it truly means to be fluent at the C2 level. It is not just about perfect grammar or difficult words. It is about using English naturally, politely, and effectively in every situation, whether you are telling a story, sharing an opinion, or having a deep conversation. Although I wonder if we should also consider other possibilities. Notice how these sentences keep the conversation positive while still expressing your own point of view. This ability is one of the hallmarks of C2 communication. It shows balance, confidence, and emotional intelligence in the way you use language. Now, let's move to advanced practice with phrasal verbs and collocations. At the B1 level, you might already know some basic phrasal verbs such as wake up, sit down, or turn off. These are useful and common, but they are only the beginning. At the C2 level, you should learn and use phrasal verbs that carry deeper or more complex meanings. For example, bring up means to mention a topic in a conversation. Come across means to find something by chance or unexpectedly. Run out of means to have no more left of something. Carry on with means to continue doing something. Native speakers use these expressions constantly. Mastering them will make your English sound natural, fluent, and sophisticated. Let's practice a few together. Repeat after me slowly. During the meeting, she brought up an important issue that we had all overlooked. I came across an interesting article while browsing online. We ran out of milk this morning, so I had to go to the store. Try using these phrasal verbs in your daily life. The more often you use them, the more natural they will become. Once they feel easy, challenge yourself to learn a few new phrasal verbs every week. This steady growth is what takes you towards C2 fluency. In addition to phrasal verbs, let's talk about collocations, words that naturally go together. At the B1 level, many learners know the individual words, but may not combine them the way native speakers do. For example, we say make a decision, not do a decision. We say strong coffee, not powerful coffee. Learning collocations helps your English sound smooth, natural, and effortless. Some useful examples include: take responsibility, deeply concerned, fast asleep, heavy rain, crystal clear. Let's practice with a few sentences. Repeat after me. He made a quick decision after hearing all the facts. I was deeply concerned about her health. The explanation was crystal clear, and everyone understood it immediately. Notice how natural these combinations feel when spoken aloud. When you use collocations correctly, your English sounds instantly more advanced. Try practicing a few every day and build your own list of collocations related to topics you use often, such as work, study, or travel. Over time, these expressions will become automatic. At the C2 level, you should also be able to move easily between concrete and abstract ideas. At the B1 level, learners often talk about concrete things you can see, touch, or describe simply. For example, I like dogs, or I want a new phone. These are good sentences, but they do not express deeper thoughts. At the C2 level, you begin to handle abstract ideas such as freedom, success, identity, or responsibility. Instead of only saying, I like learning English, you could say, for me, learning English represents a pathway to freedom, connection, and personal growth. Notice how this version goes beyond the action itself. It talks about meaning, purpose, and emotion. That is what advanced speakers do. They connect personal experiences to larger universal ideas. Let's practice this skill together. Start with a simple sentence and try to make it more abstract and meaningful. For example, basic version, I need money. Advanced version, financial independence is essential to living with dignity and making free choices. Here's another one. Basic version, I want friends. Advanced version, building genuine friendships gives life meaning and helps us feel truly connected to others. See how the advanced versions express bigger, deeper ideas rather than only describing needs or actions. That is the true mark of C2 communication, being able to express not just what you want or do, but why it matters. If you found this lesson helpful, remember to keep practicing every day. Repeat sentences aloud, record yourself, and listen to how you sound. The more you connect your words to real-life feelings and experiences, the faster your English will grow toward mastery. And if you enjoy learning this way, you can continue listening to the Super English Talks, where every episode helps you take another step toward confident, natural C2 level fluency. C2 English mastery, metaphors, emphasis, and emotional expression. At the C2 level, you might say, human connection plays a crucial role in our emotional well-being, and I value building relationships that bring meaning to life. By practicing like this, you train yourself to see beyond the surface and connect your English to deeper ideas. 1. Using metaphors naturally. Native speakers often use metaphors to make their speech more vivid and memorable. Instead of saying he is very busy, you could say, he has a lot on his plate. Instead of she is nervous, you might say, she has butterflies in her stomach. These expressions give life to your language and make it more expressive. Let's practice together. Repeat after me. Learning a language is like planting a tree. It takes time, care, and patience, but eventually it grows strong. Her smile was like sunshine, warming everyone around her. Life is a journey, and every challenge we face is just another step along the path. Try creating your own metaphors about daily life. This creative habit will make your English both advanced and personal. 2. Mastering emphasis and subtlety. At C2, it's important to master both strong and soft emphasis. At B1, learners often rely on very, this is very important. But at C2, you can use alternatives like extremely, absolutely, utterly, incredibly, remarkably, tremendously. For softer tones, you can say slightly, somewhat, relatively, fairly, kind of. Let's practice together. This is absolutely essential if you want to succeed. I was utterly shocked by what I saw. The movie was somewhat disappointing, though still enjoyable. I felt slightly nervous before the interview, but it quickly passed. Having this range allows you to express exactly how strong your opinion or feeling is naturally and precisely. 3. Using rhetorical questions for connection. Another hallmark of advanced fluency is the rhetorical question. At B1, learners make direct statements. This is difficult. At C2, you might say, "Isn't it fascinating how quickly technology changes our lives?" Or, "Don't we all wish we had more time to do the things we love?" Rhetorical questions help engage listeners and make your speech sound persuasive and confident. Let's practice. Isn't it amazing how small changes in your routine can completely transform your day? Don't you think learning English opens the door to countless opportunities? Who wouldn't want to sound natural and confident in another language? By using rhetorical questions, you learn not just to speak correctly, but to speak with connection and emotion. 4. Real-life practice. Talking about a book. Let's put it all together. At B1, you might say, "I read a book. It was interesting." At C2, you could say, "I recently finished reading a fascinating novel that explored themes of love, loss, and personal growth. The story was deeply moving, and I found myself reflecting on my own experiences as I turned each page." See how much more vivid and expressive that sounds? You're no longer just describing, you're connecting ideas, emotions, and reflections. From B1 to C2, style, emphasis, and persuasive expression. Notice how the advanced version adds detail, emotion, and depth. Try practicing this exercise with your own favorite book, movie, or story. Begin with a simple sentence, then upgrade it step by step until it sounds advanced. To wrap up this section, remember that moving from B1 to C2 is not just about grammar and vocabulary. It's about expanding your ability to think, describe, and connect. Advanced English is the bridge between everyday conversation and meaningful, powerful communication. Each time you add detail, each time you practice synonyms, metaphors, or rhetorical questions, you are building your way toward true fluency. 1. Emphasis through sentence structure. At the advanced level, another powerful skill is the ability to use emphasis through sentence structure, not just vocabulary. At B1, learners often follow a simple subject, verb, object order. I like this idea. At C2, you can rearrange the sentence for style and impact. What I really like about this idea is its simplicity. This idea, I must say, appeals to me the most. It is the creativity of this idea that makes it stand out. These variations show control over word order and highlight different parts of your message. Advanced English isn't just about what you say, but how you shape it. Let's practice together. What inspires me the most is the effort you put into your work. It was the kindness in her voice that comforted me. What makes this place unforgettable is the warmth of its people. Practicing sentences like these helps you emphasize exactly what you want to highlight, giving your speech variety and strength. 2. Mastering reported speech. Another key skill is mastering reported speech. At B1, learners usually use direct quotes. "She said, I'm tired." At C2, you should express the same idea naturally and smoothly. "She mentioned that she was exhausted after the long journey." He explained that he had been working on the project for months. Reported speech shows maturity and precision in language use because it lets you share information clearly and professionally. Let's practice. Direct. "He said, I like this plan." Reported. "He said that he liked the plan." Direct. "She said, I will help you tomorrow." Reported. "She promised that she would help me the following day." Direct. "They said, we are leaving now." Reported. "They told me they were leaving at that moment." Repeat these slowly until they feel natural. The more you use reported speech, the more professional and fluent your English will sound. 3. Building arguments and persuasive language. At the B1 level, many learners simply state their opinion. I think learning English is important. At C2, you go beyond that. You justify your opinion with reasons, evidence, and persuasive structure. For example, I strongly believe learning English is essential, as it opens countless doors to education, career opportunities, and cultural exchange. Or, in my view, English fluency is not just about communication, it's about connecting with the world on a deeper level. This type of language shows that you can think critically and express ideas with conviction. Let's practice. In my opinion, practicing English daily is far more effective than studying only once in a while. I believe technology has made learning languages more accessible than ever before. There is no doubt that consistent practice is the key to mastering English. Use persuasive language in debates, discussions, or even personal journaling. The more you practice structured opinions, the more confident and articulate you'll become. 4. Advanced linking devices for cause and effect. At B1, you might say, I didn't sleep well, so I'm tired. At C2, you can make this more elegant and precise. Due to a restless night, I'm feeling exhausted today. As a result of staying up late, I found it difficult to concentrate in class. Owing to the heavy traffic, I arrived later than expected. These advanced cause and effect expressions make your English smoother and more academic. Let's practice together. As a consequence of poor planning, the project faced serious delays. Using these connectors regularly will make your speech and writing sound organized, fluent, and sophisticated. Moving from B1 to C2, contrast, fluency, and word precision. Let's continue practicing cause and effect before moving forward. Repeat after me. Owing to his dedication, he achieved remarkable success. And another one. Because of the sudden rain, the event had to be postponed. Practicing these kinds of sentences will help you sound natural both in professional and casual situations. At the advanced level, it is also important to know how to show contrast or concession. That means expressing two ideas that are different or opposite in a polite and natural way. At the B1 level, you might only say, I like it, but it is expensive. That is fine, but there are many smoother and more elegant ways to say the same thing. For example, you could say, although I like it, the price is too high. Or, I like it, nevertheless, I cannot afford it right now. Or, while I do enjoy it, I must admit it is far too costly. These forms allow you to sound more thoughtful and balanced when giving your opinion. They also show that you can think in a more complex way, which is a clear sign of advanced English ability. Let's practice together. Repeat after me. Although the film was long, it was captivating from beginning to end. Another one. While she is young, she has already achieved incredible success. And one more. The weather was cold. Nevertheless, we decided to go hiking. The more you practice sentences like these, the more flexible and sophisticated your English will become. You will start to sound natural, calm, and confident, just like a native speaker. Developing rhythm and fluency. Now let's talk about rhythm and fluency. Fluency is not only about grammar or vocabulary, it is also about the flow of your speech. At the B1 level, many learners stop too often when they speak. They may say something like, I went to the park. At the C2 level, however, you begin to group your words together smoothly. You might say, I went to the park yesterday afternoon, and I had a wonderful time walking among the trees. Notice how this version flows more naturally and sounds more connected. To train this, you can do a technique called shadowing. That means you listen to a native speaker and repeat exactly what they say at the same time, copying their rhythm, tone, and speed. Shadowing helps you develop muscle memory for natural English speech. It teaches your mouth and brain to work together like a fluent speaker. Practicing this every day, even for just a few minutes, will make a huge difference in your speaking ability. Choosing the right word, subtle differences in meaning. Another very important step towards C2 fluency is learning the small differences in meaning between similar words. At the B1 level, many learners often use the same few words again and again. They say things like good, bad, nice, big, small. These are fine, but they do not show advanced control of English. At the C2 level, you need to be able to choose the exact word that fits the situation. For example, instead of always saying bad, you could use words such as terrible, awful, dreadful, appalling, unpleasant, disappointing, or unacceptable. Each of these words has a slightly different feeling or shade of meaning. For example, awful might describe something emotionally negative, like an awful experience or an awful smell. But unacceptable is better used in a formal or professional situation, such as the delay was unacceptable. Understanding these small differences shows that you truly know how to express yourself precisely. Let's practice this idea with a few examples. Start with the simple sentence. The service was bad. Now, let's make it sound advanced. You could say, the service was dreadful and it completely ruined the experience. Or, the service was unacceptable for a restaurant of that standard. Or even, the service was disappointing given how highly it had been recommended. Do you notice how each version gives more information, emotion, and detail? This is what advanced English looks like. Repeat these sentences slowly, and then try to create your own upgraded version. The more you experiment, the better you will get at choosing the perfect word for every situation. Building vocabulary with advanced adjectives and adverbs. Now let's focus on adjectives and adverbs, which make your description stronger and more colorful. At the B1 level, you might say, she runs fast. At the C2 level, you can make that richer and more vivid. She runs incredibly fast, with remarkable strength and stamina. Or, she runs astonishingly quickly, leaving everyone else far behind. Adding strong adjectives and adverbs makes your English more expressive and exciting. Another example, instead of saying, the room was big, you could say, the room was spacious and elegantly designed. Or, the room was impressively large, with high ceilings that gave it an airy feel. Do you see how these details paint a clearer picture in the listener's mind? This is what advanced speakers do. They bring their words to life. Let's practice together. Repeat after me. The garden was beautifully decorated with colorful flowers. Another one. The city looked breathtakingly beautiful at night. And one more. The mountain air felt refreshingly cool after the long climb. Practicing adjectives and adverbs like these every day will help your English sound natural, rich, and expressive. By practicing all these elements, contrast, rhythm, precise word choice, and vivid description, you are training yourself to think, speak, and express like a native speaker. Every new phrase, every upgraded sentence, and every careful choice of words moves you closer to true C2 fluency. Advanced practice, adjectives, passive voice, relative clauses, and connectors. Let's continue building advanced fluency. Start with descriptive sentences. Adding strong adjectives or adverbs makes your English more vivid. Repeat after me. The speech was remarkably inspiring. Another one. He worked tirelessly to finish the project. And one more. The city was breathtakingly beautiful at night. Notice how each sentence creates a clear picture in your mind. Whenever you describe something, try to add at least one advanced adjective or adverb. Doing this every day will steadily improve your English and move you closer to the C2 level. Using passive voice effectively. Another important skill is knowing how to use passive voice. At the B1 level, you might say, the company hired him. At C2, you can also use the passive form. He was hired by the company. Passive voice is useful when you want to focus on the action or the result rather than the person doing it. For example, The meeting was postponed due to bad weather. The novel was translated into 20 languages. Advanced speakers switch naturally between active and passive sentences, depending on what they want to emphasize. Let's practice passive voice. Repeat after me. The decision was made after careful consideration. Another one. The problem was solved with teamwork and patience. And one more. The bridge was built more than 100 years ago. Try switching between active and passive forms in your own sentences until it feels natural. This flexibility is a key part of advanced grammar. Using relative clauses. Next, we practice relative clauses, which help you combine ideas and add detail. At B1, you might say, I have a friend. She lives in London. At C2, you can say, I have a friend who lives in London. Or even, I have a friend who has been living in London for several years and works as a teacher. Other examples. This is the book that inspired me to study literature. The man whose car was stolen reported it to the police immediately. Relative clauses make your sentences longer, smoother, and more informative without repeating ideas. Practice together. Repeat after me. I admire people who are always willing to help others. This is the place where we first met. She spoke to the teacher who encouraged her to keep studying. By mastering relative clauses, you can express richer ideas in a single sentence, which is a hallmark of C2 fluency. Advanced connectors. Connectors help your speech and writing sound smooth and professional. At B1, you might use because or so. At C2, you can use more advanced phrases like owing to, in light of, with regard to, in spite of, notwithstanding, provided that. For example, owing to the rain, the event was rescheduled. With regard to your question, I believe we should look at the data first. Let's practice. Repeat after me. In spite of the difficulties, they managed to succeed. Provided that we all contribute, the project will be a success. Notwithstanding his lack of experience, he handled the situation very well. Using these connectors makes your English sound polished and versatile, perfect for professional or academic contexts. Practical fluency exercise. Now it is time to put everything together. Try describing something in your life using at least one advanced adjective or adverb, passive voice where appropriate, a relative clause, an advanced connector. For example, the book that I recently read was incredibly moving, and notwithstanding its length, I finished it in one day. Practicing sentences like this every day will help you think in advanced English, not just translate from your native language. This is how you build fluency at the C2 level, by combining vocabulary, grammar, connectors, and descriptive detail naturally. Advanced storytelling and expressing opinions. Imagine you are talking about your weekend at a basic level, B1. You might say, I went shopping. I bought clothes. I met my friend. This is correct, but it is very simple. At C2, you can make it more interesting and detailed. Over the weekend, I went shopping and treated myself to some new clothes. Later, I met a friend, and we had a long and engaging conversation over coffee about our future plans. Notice how the advanced version flows like a story. It uses details, connectors, and different grammar structures. Practice this exercise with your own daily activities. Start with the basic version, then expand it step by step. Make your sentences flow like a story. Expressing opinions with precision. At B1, you might only say, I think it is good or I do not like it. At C2, you should use more precise expressions that show critical thinking. In my view, this is a highly effective solution to the problem. I would argue that this approach is not the most practical. From my perspective, the idea holds merit, though it requires further development. These expressions show your ability to think carefully and communicate professionally. Practice together. Repeat after me. As far as I am concerned, consistent practice is the most important part of learning a language. I am convinced that building vocabulary is the key to advanced fluency. I would argue that confidence is just as important as grammar when it comes to communication. Try using these expressions when giving your opinions. They will make your English sound advanced immediately. Building contrast with advanced phrases. At B1, learners often use but. At C2, you can use more advanced alternatives. Nevertheless, on the other hand, at the same time, conversely, even so. Examples. I was tired. Nevertheless, I completed the project. I enjoy city life. On the other hand, I sometimes miss the peace of the countryside. The task was challenging. Even so, we managed to succeed. These alternatives give your English rhythm and sophistication. Practice together. Repeat after me. She was nervous before the presentation. Nevertheless, she spoke with great confidence. He is often quiet. On the other hand, he can be very funny once you get to know him. The weather was bad. Even so, we decided to go ahead with the trip. Practicing these phrases will help you vary your language and avoid simple, repeated structures. Using advanced noun phrases. At C2, you can expand simple sentences using detailed noun phrases. Examples. Instead of "it is a problem," say, "It is a serious environmental problem affecting millions of people." Instead of "he is a teacher," say, "He is an experienced language teacher with more than 10 years of classroom practice." Practice together. Repeat after me. She is a highly respected professor of linguistics at a leading university. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to study abroad. He has an impressive collection of rare and valuable books. The more detail you add, the richer your English becomes. Try expanding your own sentences about your life, your work, hobbies, or experiences. Advanced modal verbs. At B1, learners may only use can, must, or should. At C2, you can use modal verbs in different tenses to express possibility, regret, criticism, or speculation. Examples. I could have studied harder, but I did not. You should have told me earlier. He might have forgotten the meeting. Practice together. Repeat after me. I could have joined the trip, but I chose to stay home. She should have apologized for her mistake. They might have taken the wrong train. Practice using modal verbs in past, present, and future contexts until they feel natural. Expressing probability and certainty. At B1, you might say, maybe he is right. At C2, you can use more precise expressions. It is highly likely that he is right. There is a strong possibility that he has already left. It is almost certain that the results will be announced tomorrow. These expressions make your speech more formal and precise. Practice together. Repeat after me. It is quite possible that she will join us later. There is a high probability of rain this weekend. It is almost certain that technology will continue to transform education. Speaking with confidence and advanced opinions. Using advanced expressions will help you speak confidently in many situations, such as academic discussions, business meetings, and everyday conversations. Let us do a real-life exercise. Imagine someone asks you, "What do you think about learning languages?" At AB1 level, you might answer simply, "It is good." At C2, you can answer in a much richer and more detailed way. In my opinion, learning languages is one of the most rewarding experiences a person can have. It not only opens doors to communication, but also expands cultural understanding and personal growth. Notice how this advanced version is full, precise, and inspiring. Practice this with questions about your daily life. Start with a simple answer and then add details, connectors, and advanced vocabulary. Mastering advanced comparisons. At B1, you might say, "She is taller than me," or "This book is better." At C2, you can make your comparisons more polished and natural. "She is significantly taller than I am," which makes her stand out in a crowd. This book is far more insightful than the previous one I read. You can also use advanced phrases like not nearly as, just as, nothing like. The exam was not nearly as difficult as I had expected. The movie was nothing like the trailer suggested. It was far more complex. Practice together. Repeat after me. This course is much more challenging than the one I took last year. The view from the mountain was just as breathtaking as the photos promised. The new policy is not nearly as effective as the old one. By practicing these forms, you add precision and variety to your comparisons. Using inversion for emphasis. At B1, you might say, I had never seen such beauty before. At C2, you can make it more elegant. Never had I seen such beauty before. I rarely go out on weekdays can become, rarely do I go out on weekdays. Inversion gives your English elegance and a literary style. It is excellent for writing, presentations, and speeches. Practice together. Repeat after me. Never have I been so inspired by a teacher. Seldom do we realize how much progress we are making until we look back. Only after failing several times did he finally succeed. These structures may feel unusual at first, but they make your English sound truly advanced. Advanced conditional structures. At B1, learners usually know first and second conditionals. At C2, you should be comfortable with mixed conditionals, which connect past events with present or future results. If I had studied medicine, I would be a doctor now. If I had not missed the train, I would be at the office already. These sentences show you can think across different time frames, which is a sign of mastery. Practice together. Repeat after me. If I had learned English earlier, I would be more fluent now. If she had joined the company, she would be managing the team today. If I had taken that opportunity, my life would look completely different. Mixed conditionals may take practice, but they are powerful tools for expressing complex ideas. Advanced question forms. At B1, you might ask, why is this important? At C2, you can make your questions sound more thoughtful and sophisticated. To what extent is this relevant in today's world? In what ways can this strategy improve our results? How might this decision affect our long-term goals? Practice together. Repeat after me. To what extent can daily practice improve fluency? In what ways does vocabulary influence confidence? How might advanced grammar structures change the way people perceive your English? The more you practice these question forms, the more professional and thoughtful you will sound. Advanced expressions of time. At B1, you might say, I will finish it soon. At C2, you can use more advanced expressions of time such as, in the long run, sooner or later, in the meantime, from now on, at the last minute. For example, in the long run, consistent practice will make a huge difference. From now on, I will dedicate at least 1 hour a day to learning English. In the meantime, I will review my notes and vocabulary. Practicing these expressions will make your English more precise, fluent, and natural. Practicing advanced time expressions. Let us practice some advanced time expressions. Repeat after me. In the long run, consistent practice always pays off. Sooner or later, you will see the results of your hard work. We finished the project at the last minute, but it was a success. These expressions make your English sound smooth, natural, and precise. For example, in the long run, consistent practice always pays off. From now on, I will dedicate at least 30 minutes a day to improving my English. These types of phrases give your English natural rhythm and variety. Practice together. Repeat after me. Sooner or later, your hard work will show results. In the meantime, keep practicing every day to stay sharp. At the last minute, he decided to change his presentation. Using time expressions naturally is an important way to show fluency at a high level. Expanding your goals in English. Now, let us do a short real-life exercise. Imagine you are describing your goals. At AB1 level, you might say, I want to be fluent. At C2, you could expand it like this. My ultimate goal is to achieve fluency in English so that I can participate in international discussions with confidence and ease. Or, in the long run, I aim to master advanced vocabulary and expressions that will allow me to express myself with precision and elegance. Practice expanding your own goals in this way. It will not only improve your English, but also increase your motivation to keep learning. Handling uncertainty and speculation. At the C2 level, one of the clearest signs of fluency is the ability to handle uncertainty and speculation naturally. At B1, you might say, maybe he is late. At C2, you can say the same idea in more advanced ways. He might have been delayed by traffic. It is possible that he lost track of time. He could well be running behind schedule. These expressions make your English sound precise and flexible. Practice together. Repeat after me. She may have forgotten to check her messages. It is quite possible that the event will be postponed. They could well be considering other options at this point. Using a variety of speculative phrases shows that you can think flexibly in English, which is an advanced skill. Using cleft sentences for emphasis. Another advanced skill at C2 is using cleft sentences to emphasize part of a sentence. At B1, you might say, I enjoyed the movie. At C2, you could say, what I really enjoyed was the movie soundtrack. It was her determination that inspired me the most. Cleft sentences allow you to highlight specific parts of your sentence, making your speech more dynamic and expressive. Practice together. Repeat after me. What surprised me was how quickly I improved after daily practice. It was his positive attitude that motivated the whole team. What I appreciate most is your willingness to keep learning. Practicing cleft sentences. Practicing cleft sentences helps you add variety and emphasis to your speech. This is an important step towards reaching C2 mastery. At the advanced level, you also need to refine the way you agree and disagree politely. At B1, you might simply say, I agree. I do not agree. At C2, you can use more nuanced and respectful expressions. I completely agree with your point as it highlights the importance of practice. I agree to some extent, though I think there are other factors to consider. I am not entirely convinced, but I see where you are coming from. These expressions allow you to participate in discussions respectfully and with depth. Practice together. Repeat after me. I totally agree that vocabulary is central to fluency. I agree to a certain degree, but I believe grammar is equally important. I can see your perspective, though I would interpret it differently. Using these advanced phrases will help you sound balanced, confident, and respectful in any conversation. Speaking for longer periods. At C2, another important skill is speaking clearly and fluently for longer periods. Many B1 learners struggle to speak more than a few sentences without pausing, repeating themselves, or losing track of ideas. Advanced speakers, however, can hold the floor by organizing their thoughts and using signposts. For example, you could say, there are 3 main reasons why I believe practice is essential. Firstly, it builds confidence. Secondly, it helps vocabulary become automatic. And finally, it develops rhythm and flow, which are necessary for fluency. Notice how the sentence is structured. Words like firstly, secondly, and finally help keep your listener engaged and make your speech smooth and easy to follow. Practice with a sample. Repeat after me. There are several advantages to reading books in English. To begin with, it exposes you to new vocabulary. In addition, it helps you see grammar and context. And finally, it improves your imagination and creativity. Now try creating your own structured speech about a daily topic such as food, hobbies, or study habits. Practicing this way will help you speak confidently for longer periods, which is essential at C2. Using subtle intensifiers and downtoners. At the advanced level, you also need to control the intensity of your opinions with subtle intensifiers and downtoners. For example, instead of saying, I like it, you could say, I really like it. I absolutely love it. I quite like it. Each version changes the strength of your opinion. Similarly, instead of saying, it is difficult, you could say, it is fairly difficult. It is somewhat challenging. It is extremely demanding. Using these variations allows you to express your ideas with precision and sound more natural in English. Using intensifiers and downtoners. Small changes in how you express intensity make your English more precise and natural. Practice together. Repeat after me. I absolutely loved the concert last night. The exam was fairly challenging, but I managed to do well. I am rather interested in learning more about this topic. By practicing intensifiers and downtoners, you gain control over how strong or soft your message sounds. This is an essential skill for advanced communication. Real-life practice. Weekend example. Now, let's bring everything together with a real-life example. Imagine someone asks you, how was your weekend? At B1, you might answer, it was good. At C2, you could answer, my weekend was absolutely wonderful. I spent time with close friends, and we had a fascinating discussion about our future goals. What I really enjoyed was how relaxed and refreshing the whole atmosphere felt. Notice how this answer uses intensifiers, cleft sentences, and advanced vocabulary naturally. Practicing answers like this to common questions will gradually move you toward advanced fluency. Expressing nuance in emotions. At C2, one of the most impressive skills is showing shades of emotion and attitude. At B1, you might say, I am happy. I am sad. These are correct but simple. At C2, you can show different levels of feeling. Instead of I am happy, you could say, I am overjoyed by the news. I am deeply content with the results. Instead of I am sad, you could say, I felt heartbroken when I heard the story. I was a little down after the meeting did not go well. Choosing the exact word for the emotion separates advanced speakers from intermediate learners. Practice together. Repeat. I was thrilled to hear about her success. He was devastated after losing his job. She was slightly disappointed, but overall she remained hopeful. By practicing different levels of emotion, you learn to control the mood and style of your English. Politeness and indirect requests. Another advanced skill is mastering politeness and indirect language. At B1, learners often speak very directly. Give me the book. At C2, you learn to soften requests. Could you pass me the book, please? I was wondering if you could help me with this. In professional and social situations, indirectness shows respect and sophistication. For example, instead of saying, close the window, you could say, would you mind closing the window? Practice together. Repeat. Would it be possible for you to explain that again? I was wondering if we could discuss this tomorrow. Could you please let me know your opinion on this? Practicing polite forms prepares you for professional and academic conversations, where tone is as important as correctness. Advanced academic and formal vocabulary. At C2, you should also use formal and academic vocabulary naturally. At B1, you might say, the test was hard. At C2, you could say, the exam proved to be particularly demanding. Instead of, I need to think about it, you could say, I need to reflect on this matter. Instead of, he said no, you could say, he declined the offer. Using these expressions will make your English sound advanced, formal, and precise, perfect for professional, academic, and daily conversations. Using formal language. Using more careful choices in your words makes your English more professional and elegant. This is useful for writing essays, giving presentations, or during job interviews. Practice together. Repeat after me. The results were satisfactory, but further analysis is required. We must evaluate the options before making a decision. She expressed her gratitude for the support she received. Notice how each sentence uses more formal verbs and nouns. Practicing these kinds of sentences will help you move easily between casual and formal situations. Hedging language. Another step toward advanced fluency is learning hedging language. Native speakers often use hedging to sound careful and precise. For example, instead of saying, "This is true," you could say, "This seems to be true. This is likely to be the case." Instead of saying, "Everyone agrees," you could say, "Most people would agree." This type of careful language is common in academic and professional contexts. It shows that you understand nuance and do not overgeneralize. Practice together. Repeat. It appears that students improve faster with regular practice. This method is likely to be effective in many situations. There seems to be a connection between reading and vocabulary growth. Using hedging language makes your English sound careful, balanced, and advanced. Parallelism. At the advanced level, you should also master rhetorical devices, such as parallelism. Parallelism is when you repeat similar structures in your sentences to create rhythm and emphasis. For example, practice builds confidence, practice builds fluency, practice builds success. She was determined to win, determined to succeed, and determined to never give up. Parallelism gives your speech a powerful and memorable quality. Practice together. Repeat. We need patience. We need persistence, and we need passion to reach fluency. He studied every morning. He studied every afternoon, and he studied every night. To learn is to grow. To grow is to succeed. And to succeed is to inspire. These rhythmic patterns make your English sound inspiring and professional. Real-life practice. Job interview. Now, let us put everything into a real-life situation. Imagine you are in a job interview and someone asks, "Why do you want to work here?" At B1, you might say, "Because I need a job." At C2, you could say, "I am genuinely motivated to work here because your company values innovation. I strongly believe my skills in communication and problem solving would allow me to contribute meaningfully to your team." Notice how the advanced answer is polite, precise, and persuasive. Practicing answers like this will prepare you for real situations where advanced fluency is important. Summarizing complex information. At C2 fluency, one of the most important skills is the ability to summarize complex information clearly. At B1, learners often struggle to shorten long ideas. They might repeat themselves or leave out important points. At C2, you can take a large amount of information and express it clearly and concisely without losing meaning. For example, instead of retelling every detail of a meeting, you could say, "In summary, the team agreed to extend the project deadline, allocate more resources, and schedule weekly updates." Being able to summarize information shows maturity, confidence, and precision in your communication. Using polite forms in English is very important. They help you speak respectfully in professional, academic, and social situations. At B1, you might say things like, "I agree," "I do not agree." At C2, you can use more advanced and nuanced expressions. "I was wondering if we could discuss this tomorrow. Could you please let me know your opinion on this?" I completely agree with your point because it highlights the importance of practice. Practicing these polite forms will help you communicate with respect and confidence in formal and professional situations. Using advanced academic and formal vocabulary. At the advanced level, you should also learn formal and academic vocabulary. At B1, you might say, "The test was hard. I need to think about it. He said no." At C2, you could say, "The exam proved to be particularly demanding. I need to reflect on this matter. He declined the offer." These choices make your English sound professional and elegant, which is very useful for essays, presentations, and job interviews. Practice together. Repeat. The results were satisfactory, but further analysis is required. We must evaluate the options before making a decision. She expressed her gratitude for the support she received. Notice how each sentence uses formal verbs and nouns. Practicing these sentences will give you the flexibility to switch easily between casual and formal language. Hedging language. Another step toward advanced fluency is mastering hedging language. Native speakers often use hedging to sound careful and precise. For example, instead of saying, "This is true," you could say, "This seems to be true. This is likely to be the case." Instead of saying, "Everyone agrees," you could say, "Most people would agree." Hedging shows that you understand nuance and are careful not to overgeneralize. It is very common in academic and professional English. Practice together. Repeat. It appears that students improve faster with regular practice. This method is likely to be effective in many situations. There seems to be a connection between reading and vocabulary growth. Using hedging language makes your speech sound careful, balanced, and advanced. Rhetorical devices. Parallelism. At C2, you should also learn rhetorical devices, such as parallelism. Parallelism is when you repeat similar structures in a sentence to create rhythm and emphasis. For example, practice builds confidence, practice builds fluency, practice builds success. She was determined to win, determined to succeed, and determined to never give up. Parallelism makes your speech memorable and powerful. Practice together. Repeat. We need patience. We need persistence. And we need passion to reach fluency. He studied every morning. He studied every afternoon, and he studied every night. To learn is to grow. To grow is to succeed. And to succeed is to inspire. These rhythmic patterns make your English sound inspiring and professional. Real-life practice. Job interview. Finally, let us put everything into a real-life scenario. Imagine you are in a job interview and someone asks, "Why do you want to work here?" At B1, you might say, "Because I need a job." At C2, you could say, "I am genuinely motivated to work here because your company values innovation, and I strongly believe my skills in communication and problem solving would allow me to contribute meaningfully to your team." Notice how the advanced answer is polite, precise, and persuasive. Practicing responses like this will help you speak confidently in real professional situations. Practicing advanced responses like this will prepare you for real situations where advanced fluency is very important. One of the most noticeable skills at the C2 level is the ability to summarize complex information clearly. At B1, learners often struggle to condense long ideas. They may repeat themselves or leave out important points. At C2, you can take a lot of information and express it in a few clear sentences without losing meaning. For example, instead of retelling every detail of a meeting, you could say, "In summary, the team agreed to extend the project deadline, allocate more resources, and schedule weekly updates." Being able to summarize like this shows maturity, confidence, and precision in your communication. Practice together. Imagine you watched a terror movie. At B1, you might say, "The movie was about a boy. He had powers. He fought bad people. He won." At C2, you could say, "The movie followed the journey of a young boy with special powers who overcame challenges, defeated his enemies, and discovered his true identity." Notice how the advanced version is short, clear, and complete. You can try summarizing your own day, your favorite book, or even this lesson in just a few sentences. This is how you develop strong summarizing skills. Paraphrasing. Another important advanced skill is paraphrasing. At B1, many learners repeat the same words again and again. At C2, you should be able to say the same idea in different ways. For example, if someone says, "It is important to practice," you could respond in many ways. Yes, consistent practice is essential. Absolutely, regular training makes all the difference. I agree. Nothing improves fluency more than daily repetition. This shows that you are not limited by vocabulary and can adapt your language to any situation. Practice together. The sentence is, I like reading books. Advanced versions could be, I really enjoy reading novels in my free time. Reading is one of my favorite pastimes. I find great pleasure in exploring different stories through books. Repeat these sentences and then try creating your own versions. The more you paraphrase, the more natural and advanced your English will sound. Using advanced transitions. At C2, you should also master advanced transitions when giving presentations or telling stories. At B1, learners often use simple connectors like then, next, after that. At C2, you can use transitions like moving on, furthermore. Having said that, in addition, to put it differently, in contrast, for example, for instance, in addition to building vocabulary, regular listening practice is equally important. Having said that, grammar cannot be ignored if you want to express yourself clearly. These advanced transitions help guide your listeners smoothly through your ideas and make your speech sound more professional. Practice together. Repeat. Moving on, let's discuss the importance of fluency in daily life. Furthermore, practicing with native speakers can accelerate progress. Having said that, grammar should still be practiced regularly. Using humor and idioms. At C2, you should also be comfortable using humor, idioms, and figurative language. At B1, learners often avoid humor because they are afraid of making mistakes. But humor is a natural part of communication and makes your speech sound more confident and friendly. For example, if something is very obvious, you could say jokingly, well, that is as clear as daylight. If someone is late, you could smile and say, better late than never. Other examples include, I was so hungry I could eat a horse. That test was a walk in the park compared to the last one. She always breaks the ice with a funny comment. Practicing idiomatic humor helps you connect with native speakers and shows advanced fluency. Reflection and self-expression. Another important part of C2 fluency is reflection and self-expression. At B1, you might only say, I learned English. At C2, you can reflect more deeply. Learning English has been one of the most transformative journeys of my life. It has taught me not only new words, but also new ways of thinking. This deeper reflection makes your English meaningful, memorable, and personal. Here is an exercise. Answer the question, what has English given you? At B1, you might say, it gave me knowledge. At C2, you could say, English has given me the chance to connect with people across the world, to learn about different cultures, and to see myself as part of a global community. Try reflecting in this way about your own experiences. This practice will give you emotional fluency alongside linguistic fluency. Introducing yourself to an international audience. Finally, let us combine everything into one real-life practice. Imagine you are introducing yourself to an international audience. At B1, you might say, my name is Jara. I live in Spain. I like reading. At C2, you could say, my name is Jara and I come from Spain. I have always been passionate about reading because it allows me to explore new ideas and cultures. I am especially interested in how literature connects people across borders. Notice the difference. The advanced version flows naturally, provides depth, and shows personality. That is what you should aim for in your own English. Finally, let us close with some motivation. Reaching C2 fluency is not something that happens overnight. It takes patience, dedication, and daily effort. But remember, every small step you take matters. Every new word you learn, every mistake you correct, every practice session you complete, these all push you forward. Fluency is not just about speaking perfect English. It is about communicating with confidence, clarity, and authenticity. So keep practicing. Keep shadowing native speakers. Keep expanding your vocabulary. Keep challenging yourself with advanced structures. You are not just learning English. You are building a bridge to the world, to new opportunities, and to your own personal growth. Thank you very much for spending your time with me today. If you have reached this part of the lesson, it shows that you truly care about your English and your future, and I am very proud of you for that. If you found this lesson helpful, you can support this channel. Subscribe so you never miss a new lesson. Press the like button to show that this content helps you. And most importantly, share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what you learned today or what you want me to teach in the next lesson. Your likes, comments, and subscriptions help keep this channel alive. Every time you interact, you are helping me create even more free lessons for learners all over the world. Remember, you are not learning alone. We are building a global community of English learners who support each other. Join the conversation in the comments and inspire someone else with your progress. Thank you again for being here, for learning with me, and for taking one more step toward fluency today. I cannot wait to see you in the next lesson. Until then, keep practicing, keep smiling, and keep believing in yourself.